I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine. A story that has raised many questions concerning the justice of our society. For the purpose of our story, his name is Brother X. And many a person has wondered whatever happened to Brother X. I know. And I'm going to share this secret with you. It all began several years ago. Some of the brothers have really had it hard, but none that I have ever met have ever had it as bad as Brother X. Like many of us, he was born in the ghetto, in a little shack back up behind some already old and run-down hotel. The crib had no running water, no heat, no toilet, and only one room. It smelled like a rank stable. It was really a gas. And so was the early part of his life, which was riddled with disappointments. Like the heartbreak of having your own brothers and other kin laughing behind your back, not old enough to understand, only later to find out that you were born out of wedlock, that the man you thought was your father really isn't. In fact, the other children were only stepbrothers, and they let you know it by calling you some real flat names whenever there was a disagreement. Well, Brother X started off in life as just a half-brother. And to be half of anything can really be a mess. Some of you brothers know just how he felt because you've experienced the same thing. But it was worse with him because he didn't fit into anything in the family that is anything but work. When the home became without a father, he had to get out and to break his back to keep the family above water. Now, Brother X was no dummy by any stretch of the imagination, but formal education was just not his bag. The only education he got is what his mother had taught him, what he picked up on his own in the streets. Now imagine no education and hitting a bad slave every day to support some half-brothers that had already helped to make your life a hard lick. These were just a few of the many things going against him. But you know, you've got to give him credit. He really hung in there. Many a brother has broken under such weight. But X learned early in life to roll with the punches. He worked hard in the day and began to crack the books at night. He became obsessed with the desire to improve himself and to one day to make a break. Deep inside, he'd always felt that swinging a hammer the rest of his life was not his cup of tea. Oh, not that there was anything wrong with honest work. He rather enjoyed his work and he learned everything about the job that he could. But there was just something else he dreamed of doing. He wanted to get on the streets and help brothers and sisters out of their bags. He hated to see the way things were going in the neighborhood. And he dreamed of one day becoming a leader in the block, standing up before crowds and telling them like it is. But for the time being, it was just a dream. And so he just kept on hitting that bad slave every day, putting crumbs on the family table. Several years before, he had promised himself that he was going to stand by his mother until she could do better, or until some of the others could help out. X never broke his promise, but it really delayed his getting with that which he really wanted to do. Now maybe you've had the experience of really wanting to do something real bad, to really do your thing. But circumstances kept you tied down. If so, then you know what this brother was going through. In fact, it looked as if he wasn't going to make it. He was 30 years old before he felt at ease to make his move. Mother was doing fine, and all the kids were able to make it on their own. He had kept his promise. Free at last. That's why I say that this cat was no ordinary dude. Who else would have hung in there so long? I wouldn't have. And you probably wouldn't have either. But that's the kind of brother that he was. He could really hang in there. You know, I remember the day when he decided to leave home. He didn't take any of his old rags with him, only what he had on. He just left and headed for the streets, free at last to do his own thing. Man, that must really have been a good feeling. Just pick up and make it, all ready to fly body and soul into what you've been aching to do for years. No bags, no tricks, no nothing. Just you and a chance to get in there and sock it. Oh, he knew that it wasn't going to be an easy road to hoe. But baby, that's part of the game. Nothing comes easy if it's worth a dime. At least he had a chance, and he was really going to take it. That's Brother X. Not just picture him. Here he was, an unknown on the streets in a time when things were near revolution. Brothers and sisters were tired of the man. They were tired of the injustices that were against them and second-class living. Poverty was everywhere. Sickness and disease of all kinds walked the city streets in human form, and no one seemed to care. No one seemed to care. Jobs were hard to come by. Taxes were way out of sight. Discontent was the order of the day. But nothing was organized. Oh, there were a few leaders around, but nothing for real. No one wanted to pay the price of leadership. And everybody was looking for somebody to come out of the blue and take over. And so came Brother X. X remembered that he had a cousin who had at least made a start and was living in the city. And so he decided to look him up and to get next to the happenings. When X finally located him, Cuz was rapping away to a crowd that had gathered. Man, was he rapping hard. He wasn't careful about what he was saying either, just like it is. He was trying to get some brothers to join him, and together they would tighten up and work in the blocks and really build an organization. So X stayed with him for a while and learned all that he could. But he later decided that the movement would grow faster if he were out on his own with a group of his own. You know, each organization could have the one leader. And there was something that X wanted to do. He wanted to teach. But more than that was in the back of his mind. He wanted to tackle some of the problems of the street. How can you really build with the people who are sickly and living in rotten conditions? Problems of low morals bugged him. The brothers had no standard to live by, no code, no creed, no respect for the women. And that really got next to him. They'd put a skirt on the block and then they'd stone her when she didn't come around. Women were just dirt. And X knew that if they were going to get themselves together, many of these things had to be changed. Everybody had to become somebody. Even the children could no longer be neglected. Everything had to be tightened down. And Brother X began to tackle the problem. And when X tackled the problem, brother, you'd see results. You couldn't help but like his philosophy and his approach. You see, he didn't go to the man for help because he knew that he would have been wasting his time. X was no dummy. In fact, he was one of the smartest, if not the smartest dude for down-to-earth reasoning that I have ever come across or even ever read about. The dude was just out of sight. And you know, when he was rapping on the block and some other cat attempted to make a sham out of him, you know, every now and then somebody would stand up and try to blow your speech, you see. But X would just ice the cat so casually and without any effort. And even though he didn't go for bad, when he was trying to get a point across and a non-believer would challenge him, man, he'd make the dude answer his own question and look stupid. Maybe this is one of the reasons why a crowd always gathered when X was going to speak. Or some folk would come to see a contest or a show. Some will come out of curiosity. But people knew that when X was going to speak, you'd get something. And so they came. People knew that he was sincere. Well, I'm not saying that everybody agreed with him. Some liked his cousin's more direct approach. Some didn't like anything. You can't please everybody. But man, I personally really dug the dude's philosophy. It was a positive approach. He wasn't always woofing about what used to be or what happened 1,000 years ago, or who was to blame for the evils of society. He taught everybody knows who's to blame. But knowing doesn't solve the problems. Let those step forward that want to work to change things. This was his tactic. The old put up or shut up method. And it really weeded out the phonies. I don't know about you, but I get tired of hearing about what happened 400 years ago when brothers and sisters need help now. And this was his rap. Let's program for the present. Let's do something now. Now. I can hear him. Brother X. Let's do something now. It wasn't too long before the man jailed X's cousin. They trumped up some phony charges and caged him. Word got out that they were going to make an example of him, and believe me, they really socked it to him. When X found out, he was really turned on inside, but you'd never know it. He only became more bent on working harder than ever before to really free the brothers. At times like these, he felt that those who lived on the street should not see any sign of weakness. They should be made to feel that the cause was greater than any one of them. And if he should disappear tomorrow, the cause should go on. The cause, the cause, the cause, the cause. This was the important thing. Then it's really hard to understand someone like X unless you've personally had some of the things happen to you that happened to him. Like losing your closest friend. But somewhere deep inside, he seemed to feel that not only would his cousin go, but that even he himself would suffer a terrible fate because of his identifying with and working for his people. But it was worth it to him. It was worth it. Maybe all great men have premonitions of death. I think I remember a reading of John Kennedy's wife warning him and their discussion of the matter. Malcolm X sensed his fate beforehand. Martin Luther King Jr. in several of his last addresses faced the issue of death. Many a great man whose greatness was contrived because of his sacrifice for the cause of justice, truth, equality, social and religious reform seemed to be prepared by God with the understanding that death was not only to be expected, but that unusual ways of dying were often invented for unusual men, and they seemed to be ready. I don't personally understand how one gets ready for death, but X seemed to be ready. At least if he wasn't before the death of his cousin, he perhaps began to get prepared when his cousin died. X was ready. Well, before long, with much hard work, his concern for street people paid off. I mean, he was concerned for all people. The sick, the jailed, the outcasts, the prostitutions, the pimps, the potheads, you name it. He cared. X really began to mass a following. He only had about a dozen real close padres, but man, people everywhere really dug him. I mean, dug him to the extent that they would give him the shirt off their backs. And they had good reasons for being so hung up over him. No one was allowed to go in need around him. If somebody was hungry, he'd get food. If somebody was sick, he'd take care of that too. Everybody was important to X. And he'd stop and listen to anyone. He was crazy about children. In them he saw the future. He wanted them to have dignity and purpose, to grow up in a better world than the one present. And the down folk, those who really were going through some tragedy of life, thought that X was like magic when he was around. Why, when someone died, they'd rather have X than the local preacher. That's the kind of dude that X was. He was almost unbelievable in his ability to attract people. As I think back over it, you know, he really had something going for him. Few men have been able to consistently attract men as well as women and children. Now think about it. Think about some of the real nice dudes that you know. Some are all right with women, but they're not really in with the fellas. No, I'm not talking about a dude's love life. but the kind of dude that women would just as soon be around as to be around anybody. Then the boys don't really dig this kind of dude. Now do they? Then there's another type of personality that you'll find among men. That's the dude that's a real leader of men. He's the He-Man type. He's rough and woolly, and he could punch his way out of a steel burlap sack. He gives orders, and other dudes carry them out. He's a leader of men, and fellas, they really dig him. But women find no pleasure in his continued company. And again, I'm not talking about his love life, just regular companionship. And then finally, there's the kind of dude that children don't dig at all. He can be ever so sweet to them out in public, but they run like scalded dogs whenever he comes around. And then another dude can come out of nowhere and he can be abusive in his language, and they'll climb all over him and hang on him. What I'm trying to say, brother, is that life doesn't bestow on people the ability to be accepted by all three groups, and when you find a man so gifted, you found a rare thing. X was like this. Everybody, both men, women, and children, felt at ease in his presence and at the same time under his leadership. X was one terrible dude. You know, sometimes you can be too popular. And I guess his popularity was partially responsible for his tragic end. The people began talking about running X for mayor. He wasn't interested in becoming mayor or in holding any other office. He just wanted simply to do his own thing. But the people made a big fuss over him. And I want you to know that when there is stirring of any proportion in the streets, the man uptown begins to worry for his own safety and security. And I guess someone decided that X had been around long enough. And believe me, when the man gets tired of you and you become a threat to him, the system always has a way to get rid of you. Just like they did Brother X. It's terrible the way they got to him. But you've got to give the man credit. He's shrewd. And he plays a mean game. Plus, you can't discount the fact that he controls all the bread, you know. And this is where the power has always been. Green power. Money talks. And so they bribed one of the brothers into telling them when X would be out of socket. Oh, they knew better than to come on the street in broad daylight or either at night and try to arrest him. If they had tried that man, listen, history would not have been able to write conclusively about the riot that they'd have had on their hands. People would have torn the place up, burned it down. And they knew this. So they did their work at night when X was out of socket. The next thing the folk back on the block know is that X was in jail. And some of the brothers were with him when they picked him up, and they were going to do battle. But X knew that they were outnumbered, and he didn't want any of the brothers to get done in. And so he surrendered on the condition that they let the others go free. You see, X could really think on his feet. He knew that the man really only wanted him. So why sacrifice the other brothers? They were needed back on the street to carry on the work that he had started. And even though it didn't make good sense to some of the brothers then, it makes good sense now as we look back. Keep the program moving. That's X philosophy. Keep the program moving. I hope you can kind of see why I feel as I feel about X. He was one unusual guy. He was always looking out for the welfare of others. This is the kind of cat that we need in the movement today. Dudes who are willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of others. Brothers that have a positive program and not just a whole lot of lip. Brothers who want to do something now, not always programming for the future with wordy platitudes. Brothers who are willing to be an example for the man on the street, an example of respect and dignity. And brothers who want to work and who work hard to build this dignity and self-respect and purpose and stability without sacrificing principle, without sacrificing people. Man, if we just had brothers like this, or if somehow X were around today, there's nothing that we couldn't do. What growth we'd see among our people if X were around today. Well, you know what kind of trial he got. Same old trumped up charges, like inciting and inflaming the masses. Well, I can't even remember what all they said that he was guilty of. Things happened so fast. The trial was short and sweet. They made it real sweet for themselves. Paid witnesses, hand-picked jury and all. To us it was a gas, a terrible smack on justice. When X lost, everybody lost. Everybody lost. If they only knew the truth about X, they'd realize just how much they really goofed. Why X didn't stir things up. He didn't need violence to accomplish his purpose. The only time I ever even saw him put his hands on a dude was a cat that was taking advantage of some poor folk and selling some things where he shouldn't have been selling them, and X ran him out of the community. In fact, things were so astir and to the boiling point when X came on the scene that his every action kind of cooled things down and gelled things together and helped folk to stay cool until a convenient time. And convenient times are bound by history to come, just as sure as day follows nights. And speaking of coolness, listen. Oh man, during his mock trial, he never lost his cool one bit. And that's one thing that those present will never forget. They'll never forget it. Never. To the bitter end, he was poised and self-contained. I can see him standing there now, a symbol of dignity, a symbol of a life of purpose. No bad language fell from his lips. No loudness, no crudeness, no coarseness, nothing. Oh, what an example for the brothers today. This guy, X, was just great. I can't say enough about him. There will never, as far as I'm concerned, never be another X, even if the world were to last a zillion years. Never another X. Well, the sentence was way out, but we expected it. And then you really don't expect it. You just say that to prepare yourself for the worst. X was sentenced to die. Execution, they call it. But it was nothing short of murder. X was murdered. 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 X was murdered by a society that he worked hard to save. But if he had it to do all over again, knowing X, he'd do it. Now X is gone. And yet, I want the world to know that a personality like his never really completely goes. No. You can't kill a man like X. His ideas, his examples, his concern for common people, his sacrifice of life itself will last as long as there are brothers like me to tell the story. And I'll tell it as long as I have breath within me. And then when I'm gone, somebody else will catch the fire of his inspirational life and make their own life a little pattern of his. And then they'll do like I'm doing, keeping X alive in the minds of brothers and sisters everywhere. Until one day, the whole world will know the truth about what really happened to Brother X. Well, now you've heard my story. And I've explained to you the mystery of Brother X. And I don't know how this story has affected you. But if you would like more details on Brother X and his life, perhaps so that you can tell the story and tell it more effectively than I have done. And these details can be found in the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John within the Holy Bible. For you see, Brother X is none other than Jesus Christ.